Hello everyone, my name is Borax the Mighty. In my entire League career, I've been a fill main, so aka a support player. Sometimes playing the same old supports can get tiring, so I want to find out how viable and how much fun it can be to play other champions in the support role. Today we'll be looking at Akshan, the Rogue Sentinel. And the reason why I thought this champion might be able to be a strong support is because, well, he's just super strong overall. With passives that do millions of things, like give him shields, give him extra autos, and even having the possibility of bringing back the teammates that are on your team back from the dead when they end. So, without further ado, let's rate Akshan's ability to support, starting with the early game.
There you are! Welcome back!
I like to judge the early game based on 3 categories: invading, laning, and roaming. Invading on Akshan's support seems like something that wouldn't work, and honestly it doesn't on his own. But if your team is able to land something, you'll almost certainly kill them because of just how much BS your level 1 is. And we are actually going to pause here and dive into all of the kit he has just at level 1. Are you ready for this? Because I'm telling you, it's a ton. But at level 1, he is able to deal 150% of his AD with his additional shot bonus, which applies a stack. Then when it gets procced, he deals 20 bonus magic damage and gains a shield. So pretty much on his passive alone, he's able to auto you for extra mixed damage and take less damage back, and that's not even including any of his abilities. If you are able to hit an enemy with his Q boomerang, which deals damage and applies a proc of his stack, all you need to do afterwards is auto the enemy twice and you hard win any trade. Super duper hard. Like ridiculously freaking hard. Keep this in mind because next up comes laning. But for roaming, I will give him a B rating, because while yes he is very strong, he has no way of forcing the issue himself. I like to judge the overall laning phase based on 3 categories: poking, peeling, and all inning. But we aren't starting with poking, no sir. Instead, we are starting with all inning, because as soon as you see those enemy bot laners, that's what you and your ADC are going to do, because no one in the entire game has more of an overloaded kit from range than Akshan level 1, so why not abuse that to kill them instantly or force them back into their tower. With Dark Harvest giving you that a little bit of extra oomph and an easy way to get level 2 faster than anyone else if you're helping your ADC push, it's actually crazy how safe they have to play or else they will just die. Early on, Akshan's all-in potential is amazing, and I think for level 1 it might be one of the best. However, later on in the lane, I will admit it can be kind of difficult to force an all-in as you have no CC, and the only way you can pull one off is if they are either willing to fight into you, which they have a chance to win if the enemy support lands enough CC, or if you're able to get them low through poke, and then you can commit to finishing them off by swinging in aggressively with your E towards them, or ulting them when they are low health and can't use their tower to protect themselves. Now the main reason why I thought up of Akshan's support in the first place is actually for his passive. You see, if you're able to trade with the opponents where they kill your ADC and you kill the person who killed said ADC, then you will gain more gold and you will instantly revive them so that they can get back to lane faster than the enemy that you killed, which means they will miss less minions and it becomes more of an advantageous fight for you overall. For all inning, I will give Akshan a B rating as a support because it depends on you pulling off the cheese early on and then outplaying your opponent later on. Next up we have poking, which Akshan is quite decent at in the support role, especially against melee support matchups. The whole point of his poke is to try and proc your passive, which has bonus damage and gives you a shield which will partially block any damage coming back for you in a trade, be it either minions or enemy champions. The best way to poke is to use your Q through the minion wave without hopefully last hitting too many or any from your ADC, and then when they have one of the ticks of your passive on them, because of your Q and the movement speed it gives you, running up to the enemy champion and autoing them once, which turns into 2 autos because of Akshan's passive, and because it's 2 autos and because of your Q, you get 3 total procs you wanted to do that little bit of bonus magic damage to your opponent. While this might not be a ton, it can become a lot over time, and the best position you want to be in while playing Akshan is having your opponent shoved under tower so that they can't find it too easy of a way to go in on you thanks to your minion advantage, and you can just harass them under tower while they try to farm. For poking, I will give Akshan an A rating, because while it's decent consistent damage, it's nothing too crazy and mostly relies on your Q and passive. Although I will add, if you can poke down your opponents enough to get them in Dark Harvest range and you have your ult up, it's almost always a guaranteed kill if you can get all your ulti charges off without it getting blocked, and that feels very satisfying as a way to kill your opponent. Lastly in lane, let's take a look at Akshan's ability to peel, and here's the point where Akshan can really struggle. When it comes to self-peel, he's actually pretty great. You can use your E to fly away from enemies when they try to go in on you, or if they no longer have any CC abilities left. And he has a lot of built-in movement speed buff mechanics for himself in his passive when you cancel an auto and when you hit opponents with your Q. Sadly, however, if your ADC is the one who gets engaged on, you are kind of screwed, as the only thing you can do to help him out is to turn on the enemies and hope you can out-trade them, which, if they fight at a minion disadvantage, you will frequently be able to do, as if the enemies just ignore you, the amount of damage you dish out is quite a lot. But if you are pushed up and have no vision and get ganked, you will almost always get screwed, and for these reasons I will give Akshan a C- rating for peeling in lane, because in the traditional sense, he doesn't really offer anything up, but he has some options for self-peel, which is rather nice. Before we give a rating for Akshan's ability to lane, let's talk about the matchups he might have to face. When it comes to champions that would make me cry when playing Akshan support, we have some champions that can be quite strong in your level 1 cheese battles, such as Pantheon and Amumu support, that I believe will actually win those scraps, and then we have the 3 long-range hook champions in Blitzcrank, Nautilus, and Thresh that probably won't die level 1, and if they ever land the hook, you're gonna be dead in seconds. Next up, we have some matchups I believe will be quite hard, and these include 2 engaged champions that also have a rather easy disengage in Rakan and Pyke that will be able to kill you, and while you might be able to harass them, it won't be easy killing them. Then, Leona belongs here, because she is a mid-range engaged champion that if you mess up your spacing will kill you, and therefore your lane is going to be really hard. And if Braum lands his Q on your ADC and decides to walk up with his shield up, there's little you can really do against him. And if you try to ult him or his ADC, he has a great way to block that as well. Then we have some champions where I believe you can stalemate the lane and try to outroam them with Alistar, Maokai, and Taric, because you'll be wanting to get autos off on these guys at every possibility that you can, so that if they try to engage on you, they'll be too low and they will die. So, before they hit level 2 or 3, you'll have a massive advantage and you need to maximize it. But if you weren't able to, then you should play a little cautiously, but still try and harass them. Then we have Karma here, because with the all-in level 1 cheese, she's decent against that as she has an empowered Q to match it, and then after that in lane, she can bully you back a little. Next up, we have some champions which I think you can do quite well against, including the bane of all existence known as Morgana, which, when facing up against her, is like eating a bag of completely burnt popcorn usually, is this time a bit of a manageable matchup because in the level 1 cheese, you can actually kill her if she misses route, and even if she lands it, you can still auto her during that time. Her E, while normally very annoying, almost has no use against your kit, which is another reason why she is rather manageable. Other champions that aren't that bad include pokey champions like Senna, Brand, Vel'Koz, Xerath, and Lux that you can pop fairly easily level 1 if they don't respect you, and they will be squishy and die to your more lethality focused build I will be talking about later. And then there are champions like Bard and Shen that have rather short range, and you can outtrade decently with your passive. Then we have a bunch of champions that will learn what a true power bottom looks like, and these are the super squishy champions that aren't all that stellar level 1 and really have to respect you early, or else they will get insta popped. Also, Zyra is interesting because Akshan is really good at killing her plants super quickly, and finally Akshan belongs here because, well, if someone else is picking Akshan, they're probably trolling, so you can hand them a nice little loss. Finally, we have a bunch of champions that belong in the who plays these guys even, because I believe all of these are quite decent supports and could see more playtime, but I haven't fought up against them in so long it's hard to mention the matchups, but once I see them again, I'll be sure to bump them up. In terms of what champions you want to play with, I like champions that have aggressive level 1 or 2 potential so that they can follow up with you and kill your opponents. Champions like Draven, Kalista, Lucian, and Tristana are some of the first that come to mind, and you want to avoid playing with more poke-centric lane-dominant champions as they won't really play well with your all-in desires. Although champions that can play rather safe are rather nice because it unlocks your potential to do something really good, and by that I mean, of course, roaming. When it comes to roaming, I legit think Akshan Support is one of the best champions at doing so, and that's because he's the only other champion that can be perma-invisible, outside of Evelynn of course, and you're able to unlock this potential before level 6. What I'm talking about is of course his W ability, which puts Akshan into stealth that will never go away as long as you stay next to a wall, which isn't too hard to do when walking around the map. The amount of times I've suddenly just shown up in someone's lane in order to force out a summoner spell or secure a kill is just fantastic. Now the best way you want to roam as Akshan is when the opponent is super pushed up because you don't have any hard CC to lock them down, but you do have a lot of burst damage potential to land the kill, especially if you build lethality, which I always end up doing, and of course having your Dark Harvest. If the opponent thinks that they can get out of your clutches, then you can pop your ultimate ability on them, which locks on and can be a great way to finish off the play. For Akshan's ability to roam as a support, I will give him a S-. The ability to ignore wards is just insane, and the damage output you can do is also amazing. But I do need to be realistic and mention that if you accidentally get spotted out by someone such as the enemy jungler, you are rather squishy and will probably get instantly burst down yourself, so you have to be a bit smart with the roam. But other than that, roam like the wind and help your team get ahead. When it comes to Akshan's overall ability to support in the early game, I'll give him a B+. I almost never lost an early game on this champion and would almost always have a huge lane lead, so it's hard for me to rate him any lower than this personally. I think the right situation, Akshan can be an excellent support pick in the early game, that with his cheesy level 1 and permanent Viz roams, you can build up quite a nice lead to enable you to win the game early on. However, if the opponents don't fall for your tricks, and the game is more standard and even, then late game can be quite interesting, so let's talk about that.
Killing this person won't bring my friend back. Actually, it will. Let's go do that.
When it comes to late game, I like to look at some important support strengths that include getting picks and team fighting capabilities, which will break down into engaging and peeling. Akshan is one of the few supports that I've played that was able to kill people consistently by himself or with the help of at least one other person around the map. If you're able to get some kills either through lane or by roaming, then you should have some lethality, and with that you will have some nice damage to pick off squishies that won't see you coming because of your stealth and overall speed running towards enemies. What's even more amazing though is your ability to clean up kills. Let's say your teammate is performing at their expected level, which is usually that of a donkey, and dies in a 1v1. Well, you will be able to see the opponent on the map that got the kill with your Warwick-like trail scent, gain movement speed towards them, and if you are even fast enough, you might be able to revive that teammate who dies so that they can run it down even more. For Akshan Support's ability to get picks, I will give him an A+ rating. Insane damage, a semi-global ult, the ability to follow enemies while being invisible so they don't know you're on the way, and the damage to actually finish off the job, he's one of the few supports that truly shines in this category because of his unique kit. Now let's talk about team fighting, which is something supports usually really excel at even when they don't have any gold, and the main reason, in my opinion at least, why supports shine as a class. And sadly, this is where Akshan as a support stops shining as he is quite a poor team fighter overall. You see, supports are usually responsible for engaging in a team fight or peeling in one, and man, he is terrible at both of those things. For engaging, I will give Akshan a flat out F- rating. He has no engage ability on his own and needs someone else to get the fight going, which is really bad for a support. Now, when it comes to peeling, I guess he's a little better and has a very unique way to peel actually. You see, if the enemies don't focus you down and you can dish out a lot of damage and participate in the kills, then any of your teammates that were slain will revive and will be able to run back into the fray, and honestly, I just think that's an amazing thing to have, especially for a passive. Although, the downside is that if the enemies focus you down immediately, you can't do anything really about it except for swinging away with your E and self-peeling with your movement speed, so we'll give him a C- for peeling. He doesn't have traditional CC nor shields and heals, but he does have a revive effect, which lets me give him this rating. The way I would recommend playing teamfights as Akshan is hoping your team has a good draft where your top and or jungle can engage for your team, and once a lot of the enemy abilities are used up, swinging in at the end or from stealth on the flank to clean up the fight and revive those allies that have fallen. But if you've played League long enough, you'll know that relying on your team to draft well around the champions you have and that the enemy has is almost a meme, and therefore Akshan Support is a big risk to pick and works best in a group of pre-mates if you really want to make it work. Before we give Akshan Support an overall rating on his ability to support, let's take a look at the runes and items I like to run. For runes, I'm a big fan of Dark Harvest whenever I play Lethality because I just think getting that last little pop on an enemy when they don't expect it feels amazing. Then, for the rest of the domination tree, I ran Sudden Impact as it works on your stealth and E, Eyeball Collection for a little more damage, and then because I'm super biased, I took Ultimate Hunter because man, I just love that rune, and maximizing the opportunities that I get to ult people as Akshan feels like so much fun, but truthfully, I can imagine that Relentless Hunter is a superior choice to boost your roaming strength, but what can I say, I love having fun. Then, for the secondary tree, what I ended up usually taking was Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic to give me more sustain in lane, which yes, I know is super boring. That's why I've chosen to show Absolute Focus and Scorch as the secondaries on the screen, because these are the runes I would like to maximize my level 1 all-in cheese, but man, the numbers on these runes look so low that it's hard to actually pick them up, but more testing needs to be done on them. Other rune options that I think could be very successful include PTA, as you get easy procs off with how your passive operates, and then your ADC will do more damage as well, or maybe even Electrocute for better burst damage, but alas, I couldn't bring myself to change from Dark Harvest because, well, it was the most fun in the end. Alright, let's talk about Akshan items. When it comes to your gold income item, the best option by far is Spectral Sickle, as it increases your poke a bit and gives you gold quite fast if you poke your enemies a lot. Then I like to go for early boots and some lawn swords that will eventually turn into your lethality items down the line. When it comes to upgraded boots, I think Moby's is a legendary pickup as it boosts your roaming potential a ton on this champ, and with your stealth, you will be all over the map harassing the enemy team. For my mythic, I took Dustblade, as it just seems to be the best lethality item for Akshan, and the stealth you get from takedowns with this item surprisingly enabled me to survive and win a lot more fights than I thought. For the rest of the items, you pretty much want to pick and choose which lethality items you think will be the best for your situation. If the enemy is doing a good job warding and you want something a bit cheaper, Umbral Glaive is a nice option. If you want to further maximize your roaming, pick up a Yumu's Ghostblade. Enemy has a lot of shields, it's Serpent's Fang time. enemy keeps diving you every second, maybe try an Edge of Night, who knows. In the end, if you have enough of a lead, I bet you could even get away with the more traditional on-hit Akshan build, but that sounds boring to me, so I'll have to pass on that one, Chief. Especially because those items are way too expensive from the support role. Now that we've talked about Akshan's runes and items, let's give him an overall ability support, which I'll put at a B- rank. I was genuinely shocked at how decent it seemed in lane and how you're able to snowball that lead with roams to your other lanes. Truthfully though, a lot of Akshan's reasoning for being strong as a support champion stems from the fact that, well, he's just broken overall, and Riot just doesn't seem to want to nerf him. It's probably because people still haven't really figured out how to play him, myself especially included. Like, I have no idea how to effectively use Akshan's E in game, and yet I still did relatively well on the champion even without that basic knowledge. But I will say, if you are really serious about making Akshan support work, you might want to jump into the practice pool and run up to the different walls on the Rift and see how his E interacts with them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and would leave it a like, that would make my day. And if you are interested in seeing more content like this, maybe consider subscribing, as I do plan on playing every single champion in the support role one day. Oh yeah, feel free to comment down below which champion you would like to see me play next, because there's so many to choose from. Well, thanks once again for watching, and if you do end up deciding to play Akshan support, I want to wish you good luck. You will probably need it.